James stood at the entrance of the Galactic Defense Academy, his worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The massive crystal structure towered above him, its spires reaching toward the twin suns of the Centauri system. Around him, various alien species hurried past, their movements graceful in the station's lighter gravity. He checked his acceptance letter again, still finding it hard to believe. First human ever accepted into the academy. The weight of representing Earth pressed down on him harder than the gravity back home. A blue-skinned administrator with 4 arms approached him, holding a digital tablet. Cadet James Walker. Her universal translator made her voice sound almost musical. From Earth. She said the word carefully, as if it might bite. Yes, Mom. James straightened his back, trying to look professional. Interesting. Very interesting. She blinked all 3 of her eyes. We've never had a student from a Class 12 world before. Follow me. James nearly dropped his bag. Class 12. There must be some mistake. Earth is. He trailed off as he realized he had no idea how planets were classified. The administrator led him through corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some floated, others crawled, and a few seemed to phase in and out of existence as they walked. Your world is classified as an extreme death world. Most civilized planets are Class 1 to 4. We didn't even think intelligent life could evolve in Class 12 conditions until we discovered Earth. They reached a large orientation hall where other new cadets gathered in small groups. James noticed how they all kept their distance from him once they saw his Earth identification badge. These will be your classmates for the next 3 cycles, the administrator said. Try not to. Well, try not to shock them too much with stories of your homeworld. She hurried away before James could ask what she meant. A tall bird-like creature with iridescent feathers approached him first. I am Pell. My world is Class 2, very peaceful. He tilted his head. Is it true that your world has massive pressure changes in your atmosphere that can throw buildings into the air? You mean tornadoes? Yeah, we get those sometimes. Had one pass near my house last year. James shrugged. Took the roof off my garage. The gathered aliens fell silent. A crystalline being actually changed color from blue to pale white. And you survived this? Asked a short, furry creature with large eyes. Well, yeah. We have storm shelters. Plus, the warning systems are pretty good now. James didn't understand their reaction. That's not even counting hurricane season. What is hurricane? Asked Pell, each feather now standing on end. Before James could answer, a stern-looking instructor entered the hall. His species seemed to be made of living metal, and his voice rang like a bell. Cadets, find your assigned seats. Orientation begins now. James found his seat, noticing that the ones next to him remained emptied despite the hall being nearly full. The instructor began displaying holographic images of various training programs they would undergo. Physical conditioning will begin tomorrow, the instructor announced. We have, of course, adjusted the gravity and atmospheric settings to accommodate all species. James raised his hand. Sir, what's the gravity setting? Standard Class 3 environment. 0.7 of Earth standard. We wouldn't want to strain anyone. James tried not to smile. He'd been worried about keeping up with alien cadets, but now he realized his advantage. They'd been raising concerns about Earth's gravity being too harsh, not the other way around. The orientation continued with safety protocols, emergency procedures, and curriculum overviews. James took notes, but his mind kept wandering to home. To the thunderstorms that shook windows, the winters that froze pipes, the summers that melted asphalt, to all the things he'd taken for granted. As the session ended, he overheard 2 insectoid cadets whispering. They say his world has areas where burning rock pours from the ground. Impossible. Nothing could survive that. James smiled to himself. He couldn't wait for them to learn about volcanoes. The first day at the academy had shown him something unexpected. He'd arrived worried about keeping up with advanced alien species. Now he wondered if they could keep up with him. The academy's training hall stretched out before James like a football field, its silver walls gleaming under artificial lights. He stood with his fellow cadets, all wearing the standard gray training uniforms. The instructor, Commander Rex, a tall reptilian being with scales that shifted color like oil on water, walked in front of the group. "Today's physical assessment will test your basic capabilities," Rex announced. "We'll start with endurance running." James noticed several of his classmates activating personal atmosphere bubbles. Pell, his bird-like classmate from yesterday, explained quietly, "The air here is too thick for many of us." "You don't need protection." "No," James replied. "Actually, the air feels a bit thin to me." The commander pressed a button, and a track appeared on the floor, glowing with soft blue light. 10 laps. Move at your comfortable pace." They started running. James kept to what he considered an easy jog, the kind he used for warm-ups back on Earth. To his surprise, he began passing his classmates one by one. Even those with 4 or 6 legs seemed to tire quickly. After 3 laps, most cadets had stopped, breathing heavily or whatever passed for breathing in their species. By lap 7, only James and 2 others remained running. At lap 9, he ran alone. "Cadet James," Commander Rex called out, "you may stop now." James slowed to a walk, barely winded. "Sir, I haven't finished the 10 laps." "You've already exceeded our expectations. How are you not exhausted?" "This was just a light jog, sir. On Earth, I used to run 5 miles every morning before breakfast." The commander's scales flickered between green and blue. 5 miles. In Earth gravity? "Yes, sir. Sometimes more on weekends." Whispers spread through the recovering cadets. A crystalline being approached James, its faceted surface reflecting light in rainbow patterns. "But how does your body repair the damage?" "Damage?" James looked confused. "From the constant impact and strain. Our medical data suggests that such regular stress should cause permanent harm." James couldn't help but laugh. "Actually, it makes us stronger. Human bodies adapt to stress. The more we exercise, the stronger we get." The next test involved lifting weights. The commander adjusted the gravity field to what he called challenging levels, 0.8 Earth standard. James had to hide his smile. One by one, cadets attempted to lift various weights. Most struggled with what James estimated to be about 20 pounds. When his turn came, he walked up to the weight rack confidently. "Careful, cadet," Commander Rex warned. "Start small." James picked up a weight that made several classmates gasp. In the lighter gravity, what would have been a challenging but manageable 150 pounds on Earth felt almost easy. "Impossible," one of the insectoid cadets clicked. His muscles should tear. The final test involved reaction time. Holographic targets appeared randomly around the training area, and cadets had to touch them before they vanished. James's Earth-honed reflexes, evolved from millennia of dodging predators and hunting prey, proved exceptional. After the session ended, Commander Rex pulled James aside. "Cadet, I'm adjusting your training program. Clearly, our standard regime won't be sufficient for your unique physiology." James nodded, then asked something that had been bothering him. "Sir, if I may ask, how do beings from lower gravity worlds usually fight?" "Most advanced species rely on technology, mental abilities, or ranged weapons. Physical combat is considered primitive." The commander paused, though I'm beginning to see its advantages. As James left the training hall, he overheard his classmates discussing him. "Did you see how fast he moved? They say his world has predators that can run for hours without stopping. I heard humans can break bones and heal them stronger than before." Pell caught up with him. "James, would you be willing to teach some of us your training methods?" James smiled. "Of course, though we might need to start really slow. How about we begin with some simple push-ups?" The look of confusion on Pell's face told James This would be an interesting teaching experience. The Academy's holographic training room transformed around the cadets. Gone were the smooth metal walls, replaced by a dense forest environment. James felt right at home as artificial rain pattered against the leaves above. "This is your survival assessment," Commander Rex announced. "The environment will cycle through various conditions. Your task is to survive for 24 hours using only basic tools." Each cadet received a small pack containing a water filter, a multi-tool, and a basic emergency beacon. James examined his gear, reminded of his old camping trips back on Earth. "The simulation begins now," Rex said, vanishing along with the other instructors. The artificial rain grew heavier. Most cadets immediately sought shelter, their bodies clearly not designed for wet conditions. Pell huddled under a large leaf, his feathers puffed up against the moisture. "James," Pell called out, "shouldn't you find cover? The water will damage your outer layer." James walked through the rain, feeling refreshed. "Actually, humans evolved in the rain. We can handle getting wet. Water is essential for our planet's life." "But how do you prevent temperature loss?" asked a crystalline cadet named Lux, who had created a small force field to stay dry. "Our bodies regulate temperature pretty well," James explained while gathering branches. "Plus, we can make fire." "Fire?" Several cadets backed away. "You would create plasma reactions in a forest." James laughed, setting up a basic shelter. "Not plasma, just controlled burning of plant matter. Here, let me show you something my dad taught me." He quickly built a lean-to shelter, large enough for several cadets. Using the multi-tool striker, he started a small fire under the shelter's protection, carefully controlling the smoke. The alien cadets watched in fascination as he worked. A serpentine student named Trill slithered closer. "Your species intentionally creates combustion for survival." "Fire was one of humanity's first tools," James explained, warming his hands. "It keeps us warm, cooks food, scares away predators." As night fell in the simulation, the temperature dropped dramatically. Most cadets activated their emergency beacons, unable to handle the cold. But a small group huddled around James's fire, listening to his stories. "So there I was, 12 years old, camping with my family," James said, adding wood to the fire. "A storm knocked down our tent, and we had to build a shelter just like this one. Spent 3 days waiting for rescue." 3 days. Pell's feathers rustled. "Without technology. We had food, water, and could make fire. That's all humans really need to survive short-term." James paused. "Though the bear trying to steal our food made things exciting." "What is bear?" Trill asked. James described the massive predator, explaining how his father had scared it away with noise and fire. His classmates listened with a mixture of horror and fascination. The simulation cycled through different challenges: intense heat, strong winds, even a minor earthquake. James helped his group adapt to each situation, sharing survival techniques passed down through generations of human outdoor enthusiasts. By morning, only James's group remained in the simulation. The others had all activated their beacons during the night, unable to cope with the changing conditions. Commander Rex appeared as the forest faded away. "Impressive, Cadet James. Not only did you survive, but you helped others survive as well." "Thank you, sir," James replied. Though these conditions were pretty mild compared to real Earth camping. Mild. Lux's crystalline form flickered in disbelief. "What could be worse than this?" "Well, there was this one time I got caught in a blizzard," James began, but stopped when he saw several cadets' life signs monitors start blinking in distress. Commander Rex raised a hand. "Perhaps save that story for another time, Cadet. I believe your classmates need time to process what they've learned today." As they left the training room, Pell walked beside James. "I understand now why humans achieve spaceflight so quickly," the bird-like cadet said quietly. "When your normal day is survival training, everything else must seem easy." James smiled. He'd never thought of Earth that way before, but Pell had a point. Maybe growing up on a Deathworld wasn't such a bad thing after all. James stood in the Academy's cafeteria line, studying the array of alien foods before him. After 3 weeks at the Academy, he'd learned to recognize some safe options. Today, something caught his eye. A dark brown liquid that looked remarkably like coffee. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you," Pell warned, his feathers twitching nervously. "That's concentrated stimulant extract. Very dangerous." James sniffed the drink. His face lit up. This is coffee, or something very close to it. He filled a cup, adding what appeared to be the alien equivalent of sugar. James, no. Lux, the crystalline cadet, moved away quickly. That's classified as a Class 3 neurotoxin. But James had already taken a long drink. He sighed happily. Just like home. Maybe a bit stronger than usual. The cafeteria fell silent. Several cadets activated their emergency medical beacons. 2 security drones zoomed in, scanning James for signs of distress. Commander Rex burst through the doors moments later. "Cadet James, don't move," the commander ordered. "Medical team is on the way." "How are you still standing?" James looked confused, still holding his cup. "Sir, is something wrong?" The medical team arrived, led by Dr. Vix, a 6-armed being whose color changed with her emotions. Currently, she was flashing between red and purple in panic. "He consumed an entire cup of stimulant extract," Pell explained, his voice shaking. "The lethal dose is supposed to be 1 drop. Dr. Vix scanned James repeatedly. "Impossible. Your neural activity is elevated but stable. Your body is processing the toxin." "Oh, you mean the caffeine?" James laughed. "Humans drink this stuff all the time. Some of us have 3 or 4 cups before breakfast." The doctor's color shifted to pure white. "Before breakfast. Wait until I tell you about energy drinks," James grinned. Just then, another cadet approached with their lunch tray. On it sat several bright red pods that made James's mouth water. "Are those chili peppers?" he asked excitedly. "Stop," Dr. Vix called out. "Those are defense pods. They contain caustic chemicals." But James had already popped one into his mouth. The familiar burn of capsaicin spread across his tongue. "Oh wow, these are great. Spicier than jalapenos. Maybe closer to habaneros." The medical team's instruments were going crazy. The cafeteria had been evacuated except for a few curious cadets watching from a safe distance. "Your mouth tissue should be dissolving," Dr. Vix said, staring at her readings. "The chemical compound is designed to ward off predators." "Yeah, we grow plants like this on Earth for fun," James explained, reaching for another pepper. "We put them in our food to make it taste better." Commander Rex stepped forward. "Cadet, are you saying humans intentionally cultivate toxic plants for consumption?" "Sure. We got all kinds of spicy foods. Indian cuisine, Mexican food, Thai dishes." James listed off cuisines while the medical team huddled around their devices in confusion. "Fascinating," Dr. Vix finally said. "Your species has evolved not just resistance to toxins, but a way to derive pleasure from them. This could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." "Does this mean I can finish my coffee?" James asked hopefully. The commander sighed. "I suppose stopping you would be pointless. But please, inform the medical team before consuming any other normal human substances." As the excitement died down, cadets slowly returned to the cafeteria. James noticed several of them watching him with new respect. Pell settled nearby, keeping a safe distance from James's lunch. "I must ask, what other toxins do humans regularly consume?" "Well, there's chocolate, alcohol, various fermented foods," James began. "Perhaps," Commander Rex interrupted. "That's a discussion for xenobiology class. I don't think our medical team's nerds can handle any more surprises today." James nodded, but couldn't help adding, "Wait until they learn about hot sauce collections." The commander's scales shifted to a new color, one James had never seen before. He was pretty sure it meant exasperated resignation. Red warning lights flashed through the academy's corridors as James sat in his stenobiology class. The station's AI voice echoed through the halls. Warning: environmental control system failure. Emergency protocols initiated. Commander Rex burst into the classroom. Station's main reactor is malfunctioning. Environmental controls are destabilizing across all sectors. James felt the temperature rising rapidly. Around him, his alien classmates began showing signs of distress. Pel's feathers started drooping, while Lux's crystalline form began to cloud over. Current temperature: 35 degrees Celsius, the AI announced. Humidity: 75% and rising. Several cadets collapsed. Their bodies, evolved for specific environmental conditions, couldn't handle the rapid changes. James stood up, remembering summers back home in Texas that were far worse than this. "Sir," James called to Commander Rex, "I can help. These conditions are normal for parts of Earth." The commander's scales had turned a pale gray. "You're sure you can function?" "Yes, sir. This is like a normal summer day where I'm from." James was already moving to help Pel, who had slumped over his desk. "Very well. Take charge, Cadet. Engineering team needs 20 minutes to reset the systems." James quickly assessed the situation. "We need to get everyone to the lower levels. Heat rises, so it should be cooler down there." He began organizing the conscious cadets. "If you can walk, help carry those who can't. Pel, can you move?" The bird-like cadet struggled to stand. "So hot. Lean on me," James said, supporting his friend while also helping guide a group of crystalline cadets who were having trouble maintaining their form. They made their way through the corridors, which felt like a sauna now. James had taken off his outer uniform jacket, using it to fan air toward the most affected cadets. Temperature: 38 degrees Celsius. The AI updated. Humidity: 80%. "Just like hurricane season back home," James muttered, helping another fallen cadet to their feet. He'd spent weeks without power during major storms, dealing with worse heat and humidity than this. They reached the lower levels, where the temperature was slightly more bearable. James organized the cadets into groups, using his emergency training from Earth. "Remove any heavy outer layers," he instructed. "Crystalline forms, stay away from the walls. They're conducting heat. Pel, spread your feathers out. It'll help with cooling." Commander Rex watched in amazement as James moved efficiently through the groups, checking vital signs and helping position everyone to maximize the cooler airflow. How are you still functioning so well?" Lux asked weakly. "Humans evolved to handle temperature extremes," James explained while setting up a makeshift fan using his tablet. "We can sweat to cool down, and our bodies are pretty good at dealing with heat." "You mean this isn't even dangerous for you?" Trill asked from where they lay coiled in the coolest corner. "Uncomfortable, sure, but dangerous. Nah, you should see Death Valley back on Earth, or the Sahara Desert. Now those are hot." The next 15 minutes tested everyone's limits. James kept moving, checking on his classmates, sharing water, and telling stories of Earth's weather to distract them from their discomfort. Finally, the AI announced, "Environmental systems restored. Temperature normalizing." As cool air began flowing again, James heard sighs of relief from around the room. Commander Rex approached him, scales now returning to their normal color. "Excellent work, Cadet James. Your ability to function in extreme conditions saved us from a potentially serious situation." James shrugged. "Just did what anyone from Earth would do, sir." As the cadets began recovering, Pel wobbled over to James. "I understand now why Earth is classified as it is. Your world's challenges have made you incredibly adaptive." "Yeah," James smiled, helping his friend stand steady. "Though I probably shouldn't mention that back home, we also deal with extreme cold, not just heat." The commander's scales flickered. "Perhaps we should update our emergency protocols and recruit more humans for the academy." James just grinned. Wait until they heard about the time he had to walk to school in a blizzard. James stood at the front of the classroom, his presentation ready. After the recent emergency, Commander Rex had asked him to share information about how humans adapted to fight in extreme conditions. The lecture hall was packed. Even senior cadets had come to listen. Today, James began, I'll explain how Earth's harsh conditions shaped human warfare and survival tactics. He displayed an image of Earth's varied terrains: deserts, jungles, Arctic regions, and mountains. The alien cadets murmured at the sight of such diverse environments on a single planet. Humans have fought wars in every one of these environments, James explained. We've battled through snowstorms, crossed deserts, fought in steaming jungles, and scaled mountains. Pell raised a wing. But why not wait for favorable conditions? James smiled. On Earth, we learned that weather and terrain could be advantages if you adapted to them. Let me show you. He displayed images of various military operations. These soldiers marched through a sandstorm to surprise their enemies. These ones used a blizzard for cover. And here, troops used jungle rainfall to mask their movements. The commander's scales shifted to an interested blue color. Your species intentionally uses hostile conditions as tactical advantages. Yes, sir. Earth armies train specifically for extreme environments. James switched to a new image. These are special forces training in Arctic conditions. The temperature is below freezing, but they survive for weeks. Lux's crystalline form sparkled in amazement. Below freezing, while fighting. That's right. We have units specialized for deserts, mountains, jungles, Arctic regions, any environment that exists on Earth. James then showed footage of marine training exercises. These soldiers train in both freezing waters and tropical seas. They can fight in any ocean condition. But how do they handle the pressure changes? Trill asked, their serpentine form coiling in confusion. Special breathing techniques and training. Humans can learn to dive deep without technology if they train enough. The next slides showed mountain warfare training. These troops operate at high altitudes where the air is thin. They climb ice walls, cross glaciers, and fight in snowstorms. Impossible, one senior cadet declared. No species can adapt to so many different extremes. James pulled up his final slides. Actually, humans have something special. We're persistence predators. We evolved to keep going when other species need to rest. We can adapt to almost any environment given enough time. He showed images of various survival training scenarios. Every human soldier learns basic survival skills. How to find water in deserts, build shelters in snow, navigate by stars, find safe food in jungles. Commander Rex stepped forward. And these skills are still taught despite your advanced technology. Yes, sir, because technology can fail. Like during our recent emergency, sometimes you have to rely on basic survival skills. The presentation ended with a quote from an ancient Earth general. The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. As the lights came up, the lecture hall remained silent for a moment. Then the questions started pouring in. How long can humans fight without rest? Can you really drink water from plants? Is it true humans can eat almost anything? James answered each question, surprised by how extraordinary Earth's normal seemed to his classmates. Even basic things like fighting in rain or dealing with heat seemed amazing to them. Commander Rex raised his hand for silence. I believe we now understand why the Galactic Defense Force is so interested in human recruits. Your natural adaptability is remarkable. Pell spoke up from his seat. No wonder James handled our emergency so well. For him, it wasn't even an emergency. That's the thing about coming from Earth, James said. You never know what conditions you'll face, so you learn to handle anything. It's just normal for us. As the cadets filed out, Commander Rex held James back. Cadet, the Academy Board wants to discuss implementing some of your Earth survival training methods. Would you be willing to help design the program? James grinned. Of course, sir. Though maybe we should start with the basics before we get to the really fun stuff. The commander's scales shifted to a worried purple. There's more. Sir, I haven't even mentioned our extreme sports yet. The end of the first term at the Galactic Defense Academy approached. James sat in the garden dome, helping Pell with some basic strength training exercises. Around them, other cadets from various species practiced what they now called Earth-style exercises. 10 more push-ups. James encouraged his feathered friend. You're doing great. Pell struggled but completed the set. I still can't believe how far we've all come. 3 months ago, none of us could do even one of these. Commander Rex entered the dome, his scales glowing with a proud golden color. Cadet James, a moment please. James helped Pell up and walked over to the commander. Behind Rex stood 3 members of the Academy Board, their formal robes marking them as senior officials. Cadet, the tallest board member, spoke, their crystalline form similar to Lux's but more elaborate. Your presence here has changed things, changed them for the better. James stood straight, trying to hide his nervousness. Thank you, sir. We've reviewed the term's data, another board member said, their tentacles waving gently. The overall physical capabilities of all cadets have improved by 40%. Emergency readiness is up 75%, and application rates from Earth have increased tenfold. That's not all. Commander Rex added. Other academies are requesting our new training protocols. Your simple Earth exercises have started a revolution in galactic military training. James looked around the dome. He saw Lux spotting for Trill as they attempted sit-ups. A group of floating gas-based cadets practiced endurance movements they'd modify from human jumping jacks. Even the energy-based species had adapted certain Earth stretches to their forms. But more importantly, the third board member said, their metallic voice humming, you've shown us something we didn't expect. Humans don't just survive hardship. You learn from it. You adapt. You grow stronger. That's just how Earth is, James shrugged. You either adapt or you don't make it. Precisely, the crystalline board member nodded, which is why we're implementing a new program. Starting next term, Earth will be sending us 20 new cadets. You'll help train them, and together, you'll help prepare the entire academy for more challenging conditions. James felt a mixture of pride and excitement. You're not worried about having more humans around. We did cause quite a few emergencies this term. Commander Rex's scales flickered with amusement. You mean like the hot sauce incident in the cafeteria? Or the time you suggested rock climbing as a fun weekend activity? Or perhaps, Pell called out, having recovered enough to join the conversation, the time you showed us how humans dance. 3 cadets had to be treated for dizziness. Everyone laughed, even the board members. The atmosphere had changed so much since James's first day. What once caused panic now brought amusement and interest. Cadet James, the tentacled board member, said, you've taught us that what we saw as a disadvantage, Earth's harsh conditions, was actually your species' greatest strength. Your world forged you into something remarkable. And now, Commander Rex added, you've shown us how to become stronger too. Not by avoiding challenges, but by facing them, like humans do. James looked at his fellow cadets, now friends. Pell, who could now handle Earth normal gravity for short periods. Lux, who had learned to maintain form in varying temperatures. Trill, who had mastered climbing in different gravities. Each of them had grown stronger, more adaptable. I guess Earth's challenges did prepare us well, James admitted. Though I still think you all overreact to a little rain. The little rain. Pell squawked. Last week you called a storm perfect weather for a run. As laughter filled the dome again, James felt at home. He'd come to the academy worried about fitting in among advanced alien species. Instead, he'd help them discover their own strength, while they helped him see his world in a new light. Commander Rex placed a hand on James's shoulder. So, Cadet, ready to help us design the new Earth integrated training program? James grinned. Yes, sir. Though maybe we should wait to introduce them to Earth sports until term 2. I don't think they're ready for rugby just yet. The commander's scales turned a new color, one that James had learned meant expecting chaos, but looking forward to it anyway.